Welcome to T.O.L Studios, and today in Lesson 10, I finished up the last few lessons showing you scales, and as I kind of stated in those, I will at a future time come back in a lesson and we'll really hone in on the technique a little bit more as far as finger coordination and that. I was just trying to get you to see that pattern. Remember every major scale and spend more time reviewing on the last lessons. But just realize every one of those scales, whether it was an A scale, or a D flat major scale, or a C scale, or a G flat major scale, any of those, all of them were falling from the first to the second note of the scale, a whole step, then the second note to the third note. So your pattern was whole step, half. Then you did 3 whole steps, whole step, whole step, whole step, half. Go back, review that if you're not getting that yet, because you really need to see that for what I'm going to show you today. I talked about in the last lesson at the end, I'm going to start trying to show chords. What chords are, and this is my simple version for right now, I'll complicate it later. Chords are basically 2 or more notes. So sometimes we can have 2 notes, sometimes we have 3, sometimes we have 4, sometimes we have 5. I'll get into this more. I'll tell you what you're basically doing is you're just kind of adding the same letter, but like maybe you're playing a C and playing another C with it while you've got, different notes in there, okay? That's a chord. But guess what? That's a chord. That's a chord. So it could be 2 notes. We're going to take what we call triads. I used to get confused in music theory, but if you have a tripod, a tricycle, it's 3. So I'm going to talk about 3-note chords, okay? And I'm going to try to keep it that simple. So I'm just going to go back to the C major scale for this lesson. And again, I'm going to use one finger and try to keep this simple. That's the one we learned, and again, because we knew it was whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half. And forget all the finger stuff for right now. Let's just keep it simple. So that was first note to the second note, and this is the C scale. Whole step. D's our second note, so to the third note, whole step, that's our E. Half step to F, so we have C, D, E, F, first note, second, third, fourth note of the scale. The 5th note of the scale is our G, because we go up a whole step. 6th note's going to be our A, whole step, A up a whole step to B, that's our 7th note, finishes with the half step. Okay, now if I take a chord, easy, simple definition of what a chord would be, a 3-note chord. When you take C and we start with that note, we're going to add 2 more notes to that chord. For now, I'm going to just do them with the right hand. I'll explain later, we could put some of them over in the left, some of them in the right. We're just going to see it on one hand. If I'm on a C note, here's my simple version of chords. As long as you know you got that scale right, when you build a chord on the first note when you try to do a chord of the first note of the scale, you're going to go every other note that you add, meaning skip the D, add this one, skip the F, there's your chord. And see how I skipped those 2 notes? So I kept the C, the E, and the G. Okay, now if I go to the second note of the C scale, which is the D, you're just shifting everything up, meaning skip, skip. Okay, so if I kind of did it with these same fingers, and you won't normally use these fingers, but so you can see it, that's the C chord. I'm basically just sliding everything up. That's why everybody loves the C scale, because you don't have to touch these black keys. But don't be lazy, that you need to practice them all. Okay, so we had the C, the D, and we call these chords again. I'll explain later. We'll call them sometimes minor and major. I'm keeping them simple right now. We're just going to say a D chord. E chord. Your F. And see how I went every other note. I skipped these 2. Skip these 2. That's your G. That's going to be your A. See, I skipped these 2. So I went. And then that's on the B, so that's a B. And then And notice how I'm back to what I started on. Okay, and again, if you saw me do this with my right hand, you would learn you'll take your thumb. Now I know these feel funny at first, so go slow, but putting that on C. Since we don't play this, we're going to our third finger. Since we don't play this, which would be F. See, then that way I skip the second finger and the fourth finger, and I skip D. See, if I had all those, it'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even though earlier video I said you'd do something. I said forget all that for right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not going to play the D and the F. That's why we just skip this finger and this one. Okay, then if that's a C, go up, and I just shifted the same fingers. That way I'm skipping these two. And that's my D. So that's all you're doing. Now, again, I'm making it look easy. I had to do this much slower in the beginning. But see, then you can kind of just watch your notes, and I'll kind of explain this in a minute. This kind of helped me memorize. And then I'll show you another trick not to do what I'm getting ready to show you. But start this way. If I go back and do the first chord, I'm looking at my scale. I see that moving up. So this is what we call like chord scales. I'm sliding it up, so I'm watching this move up once I got these fingers trained. So I saw that on the E, F, G, A, B, and then a C. Okay, now if I do it with my left hand, I'll just kind of do it a little lower. You're going to do the same thing. So like if I had all the notes, it would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and again, don't worry about all this right now. And we're going to still, so this is what's weird about the left hand. You're seeing everything we just did over here at the right flip-flop because it's your left hand. So you've got to put pinky on C. Skip. E will be your third finger. Skip. So see, then I'm just not using these two. But now, once you get this, what I showed you in the right hand, the same thing's going to be true at the left. I'm kind of watching my pinky. I'll put my hand over here so you can see this. There's your C, so then I see it going up to D, going up to E, going up to F, going up to G, going up to A, going up to B, going up to C. And here's another thing, I didn't talk about this on the right hand. Watch this, the same thing's true on the right hand. Okay, there's the chords if you get what I'm showing you. That's going up a whole step, which does put me on the D. Goes up a whole step, puts me on the E. Go up a half step, that's why I'm on the F, and that's why I'm still using this finger, my pinky. Whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, which puts me on my half step to C. Okay, and then once you kind of get the chord, now you should spend plenty of time doing them with your right hand, because I can't tell you how many times my fingers would kind of miss till you get used to it. I've seen a lot of people like to use thumb, second finger, fourth. I'm going to tell you, don't do it now, but yes, sometimes when you start using your pinky, then you're going to have to use these fingers. Try doing these first, and again, as we get into more chord things, I'll explain that more better. You're just basically trying to coordinate these hands so you let these fingers do the work for you. But now if I do them together, putting thumb on the C, so I'm going to go to the C lower and put my pinky on it. And now this is what's funny, I'm going thumb in the right hand, but pinky, those are both on C's. That's the only note that's going to be the same finger in both hands. So that's my third finger and third finger on the E's, but then my left thumb on E, but it's going to be my right pinky on, or I said E, so G, and my pinky on G. So it's kind of flip-flop. So again, I'm going to make this look easy, but eventually you're trying to push them like that. Now, I even know whether it's your left or your right hand, and it's definitely be your left in the beginning, but your right hand will do this too. I make that look easy just to push them down. There's going to be times you're trying to do that and you might just get that one. Or, okay, that's muscle control. That's another reason why the scales I showed you are worth doing. I realize you might not do them all in one day, but pick one of those and practice it. Do that for about 10-15 minutes. Then go to these chords and practice that. That's a day for right now, until we add more. And what you're going to do is you're going to build up that finger strength and your tendons and your muscles, and that's going to help give you some strength when you're playing these chords. Plus, that's going to help get you used to hitting them all together and not like kind of miss them, or and that will. Sometimes they'll kind of bump the keys, or it'll push and you just won't sound it. Okay, so it takes finger strength, but so I've got pinky on C, right thumb on C, and I'm just slowly moving up the scale. So I'll watch the C note, and if I have to, I can look over here and see it's on C. Go real slow. I see it going up to the D, so I'm making sure that's on the D. Okay, so again, I'm going kind of quick. You should go slower than this. Give yourself a chance to see E. Put it on E. Okay, and I see this going up to F. Same thing, up to F. So I see this going up to G. So I see this going. Sometimes I used to walk with my fingers like I did there, meaning if I'm on G, I see this going up to A. So sometimes I would go. Then I come back over here, G to A. Then I can kind of hit them. Okay, so just go slow, but B. And then that. Okay, and then in time, because it's going to be weirder going backwards. So same thing, when you go backwards, I just see this moving down to B, which means everything's, so C down to B, E down to D. Just everything's proportionally going down. Same thing here. So I tell my students to do that. A lot of times just walk your fingers down and then do things. Then kind of hit them. But eventually, like everything else, you start doing them. You'll be able to start moving them faster. But remember, that's not your goal right now. I mean, it might be yours individually, but be smart. Go slow. I know it's very boring at first, but like anything, you do that enough, you'll start building up speed. But the trick is, you don't want to start trying to go quick, and then next thing you know, you're switching fingers, and because then you won't ever memorize it. Like, you might memorize the way it looks, but you gotta remember, when we memorize, we also memorize with our ears how it sounds, and with our fingers on how it feels. So if you're changing this up all the time, you're not going to be able to memorize it. You might, in your brain, see the notes, but you're not going to execute it always because you didn't get it memorized the way it feels. So, and sometimes I get students that take the time to get the fingers right, but they don't think about it enough. So even though they have the fingers trained, mentally they don't see it enough, and that kind of hurts them. Okay, so, and if you lack focus, then sometimes your ears will fail you because you're not really paying attention to the way it sounds. Okay, sometimes you're trying, and we just have to, kind of do it over and over to learn. So again, that's basically a chord. A chord would be 2 or more notes. We're doing triads, which are basically 3-note chords. Started on the C note, skip. Remember, I told you, you're going every other note in the scale. Okay, I'm going to do it with these fingers again. When I go up to the D, going to every other note. When I go to the E note, going to every other. The F. The G. Let's see, I'm still going to every other note. That was A, B, which finally puts us back to what we started, just up higher. Okay, now it's always going to be a little weird when you go backwards. I like to always just hit this and then see it going backwards. So this is going back, and going back, going back. Okay, however slow you need to do it. And what I always would definitely suggest too is watch some of this lesson, then stop the video. Practice, just keep coming back. That's how I've always worked with instructional videos. Okay, and I'm just sliding down. I kept going a little farther, but I'm doing the same pattern. Especially on that low one there. Okay. Now, if I thought of it as a left hand, I'm still doing the same thing. The only thing that would look different, you just would have to get used to those fingers. And again, I'm going 5, 3, 1. Now you won't pull these fingers back. Like, I just want you to see my fingers. Normally, just try to get these out of the way, and they'll just kind of sit up in the air, not way up here. You just want them to float over the keys. That's why I'm saying when you go to push these all together, like I'm doing, sometimes you might do one of these things because you're trying to get used to your muscles. Okay, but you don't have to hold them up in the air. I'm just doing that so you can see what I'm doing. That's why a lot of times it's hard to tell what fingers I'm pushing, because these are just kind of hovering right over the keys. And that's for later on if you're playing something. Now I'll slow that down, but I kind of added some notes. So there's no sense of doing like, when you're right here. And so that's why I'm saying use these 3 fingers. Same thing would be true with the right hand. You might see a piano part later on. Okay, again, it wouldn't make any sense to be going. See, I'm going to start moving fingers for that. So it just makes sense. Now, I could say this makes sense. Later on in a song, you might have to do this if you got to go up higher. So maybe if it was going, then it would make more sense to probably maybe start and kind of work your way up, to it that way. I'll explain that more in future lessons. So again, just follow the fingers I'm showing you. Left hand's always going to be 5, 3, and thumb. Right hand's always going to be the opposite, thumb, 3rd finger, 5. Okay? Now, just to kind of let you see ahead, the next lesson, that's why I want you to sit on this one so you can. Now, you might not be able to do those together. Just make sure you can do them separately. But make sure you're doing the left hand too. Because I'll explain, sometimes we're going to do chords with our left hand. Sometimes we're going to do them with our right. Sometimes you're going to do a little bit of both. And I'll explain that in future lessons as well. Now, our goal is I'm going to show you if you take a scale, which was whole step, half, whole, half. In this case, that's why we didn't use the black keys. Now we're building chords on that scale, and we're going every other note. But we only know those notes work because we know from the scale the whole step, half. So if we're back on the G scale, and this is what we're going to work on the next lesson, we're going to go whole step, half step, whole step. Remember, we got 3 of these. Whole step, there's the second one. So that's why we go whole step and then our half step. So we have 1 sharp, but when you do chords, I'm going to show you, you're going to do the same thing. So if we have G and you're going every other note. Okay, I'll keep this simple, but if you go up, that would be the next chord, an A, the B. Now this is the trick, because we need this. So you got to keep that note in there to follow your scale. That's why we're using these. Then, and that's why when you go to this next one, you got to keep that in there. Okay, now I'm going to kind of do it like this. So I don't know how well like that, or just so you can see what I'm doing for sure. Okay, but we'll go in this in the next lesson. Basically, everything you're doing is you're following the scale, and then my simple way of thinking is you're taking every other note in the scale. Now, I'll explain later, as I said, There's a lot more chords, but they're all built off this basic formulate right here I'm showing you. And there's all kinds of little tricks I'll show you after all these years seeing music in a much simpler way. It's not that theory's bad. It's just we need to strip it down and make it simple, and then that theory can kind of make sense. I'll even kind of explain. We start getting into numbers where we kind of say certain number sequences for chords, and we'll get into all that. So just keep it real simple for now, so you at least get what music's doing. Have some fun with that one. Definitely sit on this, and we're going to be reviewing this in the next lesson.